Passed with one vote.
All right, folks, we're going to talk about anomaly detection. And we're going to do a brief overview, and then we'll get into more depth after lunch. If you have loved the ambiguity of data science so far, you are going to absolutely love anomaly detection. It's going to be the cat's pajamas, and you'll never want to stop doing anomaly detection if you are into ambiguity, dealing with ambiguity, and having to make executive decisions in order to move forward. So you're in for a treat. If you don't like the ambiguity of anomaly detection, you don't have to like it, but we want you to learn it. And it's going to be around, just like ambiguity exists in data and in the world in general. A question from Arsene, go ahead.
It's just that anomaly detection was my first, like my favorite topic when I was looking at them, and I was looking forward to it. Time series being the second. So it's just a heads up to you. And also say that, you know, I know that you're a graceful person, so I'll continue to count on your gracefulness.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I want to share if there's anything any of y'all have and want to contribute to our conversation about anomaly detection in general, the overview, the specific topics. You've done some anomaly detection somewhere else, fraud detection in finance, or just anything. Anything, please feel free to hop in and share your story with the rest of the class, because anomaly detection is larger, much larger than just data science, right? People are always looking for what weird thing happened and why did it happen, and should we pay attention to it or not? Yeah, so cool. All right, well, let's jump right in. Groovy. Can y'all see my code up curriculum on my screen here? All right, groovy. Okay, so in so many words, anomaly detection is detecting things that are anomalous, right? And what we're talking about here is the practice of identifying data points, observations, or events that might not conform to an expected pattern of a given group or to the history of a given group. Right, so let's get into some of our key vocabulary, right? This comic is kind of funny, but it really drives home the point of certain observations. Do those observations exist as an accident? Like, was this one data point a typo, maybe? Or is this one data point something that's telling us a new trend is about to happen? This trend line, maybe in sales over time, is about to start trending with a different slope. Well, we don't know yet, right? So anomalies and anomaly detection is going to have a lot of ambiguity. It's going to have a lot of possible right answers. So let's talk about some of the vocabulary here. So what are anomalies? Anomalies are unusual, unexpected, or surprising patterns in the observed world. So if a data point is to be considered anomalous, there's some deviation from a rule, or deviation from what we regard as normal. That can be also called an outlier, right? So an anomaly is an event which could be out of the ordinary, whether if it's exceptional or not. Now, here's what I mean by the exceptional or not. If we have a typo in a data set, that typo would be anomalous, right? The typo is not part of the original data itself. It's noise introduced through the process of collecting the data. So in the example of a typo, all typos would be anomalies, right? But if the typo is off by 1,000, or off by 2 doesn't stop it from being an anomaly or not, right? You're going to hear both of these terms used fairly interchangeably a lot of the time, but it's important to know that just because something is far away from an expected set, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's an anomaly. And just because something, and if we have something anomalous in nature, like a typo, it could be an outlier that's far away, or it could be just a typo that's off by a little bit. So if we want to split hairs here, and I don't really want to split hairs on the differences between these two, but according to the NIST, this is their definition: an outlier is an observation that lies an abnormal distance from other values in a random sample of a population. Okay. And in that sense, the definition, this is from the NIST, the National Institute of Science and Technology, right? Pull this up. This is really, really good. This is their definition. This definition leaves it up to the analyst or a consensus process to decide what will be considered abnormal. What does that mean? That means there's no gold standard for what an outlier is. If there's no gold standard for what an outlier is, how do we even know? This means you have to make executive decisions and document your decision, right? And before we start talking about what's weird, right, outliers or anomalies, before we start talking about what's weird, we have to figure out what's normal with a data set. And how weird is absolutely relative, Vasily, absolutely. So yeah, if you loved ambiguity in data science so far, you're gonna love this stuff. That doesn't just mean we're gonna round every decimal and cut every corner when we talk about this stuff. But like when we worked with Zillow data, some of our outliers were so ridiculous that we didn't need to build a model that accounted for 22 bathroom homes, right? So outlier and anomaly, both in non-technical language and also with technical individuals will use these terms interchangeably, and that's okay, it happens. Specifically, in a more statistical space or a hard sciences space, when talking about uncertainty, statisticians are going to use the term outlier to mean something I should remove from a data set so it doesn't skew my model that I'm building. That's with the understanding that the model is trying to represent the behaviors of inputs and target variables for the vast majority of observations. Now, what about the other side of this coin? In other cases and other circumstances, we might want to use the word anomaly for data points where we want to actually keep those data points. They're actually what we're trying to look for. So what I mean by that is an anomaly might be really, really valuable to find if caught, or really costly if we miss that anomaly. And I'm talking about things like fraud detection here, or in a physical system or an engineering system. Maybe something's part's about to fail, right? A belt that's supposed to last for 20,000 miles pops early. Maybe there's something else going on that was putting stress on that belt in an engineering space, right? And so in this way, we can have anomalies that are inliers. Inlier meaning that the data is anomalous in nature, like a typo, but it's close enough to our normal space. But generally outlier and anomaly, we can use those pretty interchangeably there. Yeah, go ahead. We've got a question.
Hey, Ryan, it's Lincoln. I had a question about, so we were thinking the other day about that Zillow log error. We were thinking that, could it be like a type of anomaly detection if you picked up, let's say, a range where the log error you want it to be, let's say from 0.01 to 0.1 to minus 0.1, and then you try to look for the outside of that range, and is that almost like anomaly detection, or is it?
Yeah, Yeah, if you define a range of values to be what you're expecting to see, if something is outside of that range, yeah, you could consider that anomalous in nature or an outlier. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Cool, cool. Did that answer your question, Lincoln?
Yeah, somehow I thought you were gonna go deeper into that, but yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, there's not one magical algorithm to find all your anomalies or all your outliers. You just have to get to know your data. But let's talk about some of our applications, concrete applications. So fraud detection, or anything that looks like fraud detection, right? That could be intrusion analysis, right? Medical scans, X-rays, ultrasounds, MRIs. So medical tomography is looking for abnormalities in location, density, or change in shape of tissues, right? Tissues and structures in the body. Detecting and preventing cybercrime, like, I mean, heck, that's a big deal. Cybercrime or cyber warfare as well. Malware detection, right? That's a huge space. A lot of malware software is trying to find anomalous behavior, right? If most of a computer user's usage is just doing email and looking at, storing pictures of their cat, then it's going to be really weird once that computer starts running a server, right? And so Malwarebytes or whoever else they look for stuff like that. Intelligence and defense applications are huge in anomaly detection. I certainly don't have to say this to any of y'all who've been in the services. In another life, I think I would have, I'd love to have done like work with sonar and look at weird stuff with sonar. Because is this rumbling an engine, or is this rumbling a seismic event? Like that kind of anomaly detections are super cool. Also analytical marketing. So looking for new trends or changes in household purchases. Yeah, Greg, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I told you this kind of early on in the course, Ryan, but I actually muted myself, sorry. My dad works in measurement in a oil and gas company out in West Texas, and they hired a group of data scientists to come in, and they ran anomaly detection just on their measurements. I mean, just massive data sets of measurements at all these meters and stuff.
Yeah.
And within like the first 2 weeks, they found, using anomaly detection, they found leaks that were amounting to $20,000 worth of loss a week.
Wow.
So within 2 weeks, they'd saved them over $1 million a year.
Wow.
Just with anomaly detection. Yeah.
That's serious.
Yeah. He was very, very happy. So he hired like 3 data engineers, data scientists to come work for him full time.
Well, if he wants to talk to Stephen Salas, let us know.
I'll let him know.
That's a really cool space. And this brings us kind of dovetails us into our next point. Sometimes we can, as data professionals, roll into a new environment and make really impactful discoveries, like what Greg was describing there. We don't have a magical bag of algorithms, though. So I'm gonna share right now the best way to detect anomalies is to know your stuff, to know your domain. Now, if the domain is as simple as, hey, find where the leaks are. Here's what the leaks look like. Here's all these edge sensors. Sometimes knowing your domain you can get up to speed, quick enough. But really and truly, knowing the domain of the problem informs what's weird, informs our understanding. So I'll give you an example. Knowing that in the physical universe, at least what we've been able to stitch together so far, there's nothing colder than absolute zero. So that's 0 degrees Kelvin. So 0 degrees Kelvin, that's where matter is not even moving. It's so cold. There's no energy, so there's no heat, right? It may mean that if you measure absolute zero, now humans have not actually measured absolute zero before, even in the deep depths of like outside of the solar system, where the Voyager spacecrafts are. Both Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 they're actually out in deep space. They are no longer in the solar system. It is not 0 degrees Kelvin out there. There's still some energy, but it's pretty dang cold. But if we got a read of 0 degrees Kelvin, we could know immediately that there's something going on. Either the measuring tool is broken, or the measuring tool doesn't have as much precision as we need, or there could be a clerical error or some other kind of, maybe a null was converted into a 0. So this is just a real simple back of the napkin explanation of, if you see something that has basically no physical possibility of existing, then it's probably anomalous in nature, or a typo, right? Or maybe a null was turned into a 0. So this is really where that ambiguity comes in full force, and we'll revisit this after lunch because we're getting pretty close. But what determines if something is an outlier is really a function, and I don't mean a Python function. I mean a function of who determines if that data is anomalous, and why that the person who knows their domain believes that data is anomalous. I'm going to leave you with this one last point, and we'll break for lunch and come back. One person's noise, meaning outliers to remove, is another person's signal. So one analyst's noise is another person's signal, depending on their goals and depending on the benefits or costs to be gained or avoided by identifying that data point. So this is why anomaly detection can get really weird. One analyst's signal, the signal they're looking for, is another person's noise. It's just depending on what they're looking at, right? In Zillow, if we were trying to figure out the story of 20 bedroom homes, we would focus on them. If we need to focus on the story of homes that most Zillow customers will use, we're going to filter out those 20 bedroom homes, right? And with that, my friends, I'm going to cut our lesson, and we will meet back for lunch at 1:30.